What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to your Course in Creativity Lesson 55. This is based on and inspired by A Course in Miracles Lesson 55 from the workbook, which is a bit of a review, right? So this is cosmic permission slips. Now, this is all of the stuff that gives us permission to just be, right? It gives you permission to just be, to take the bags of things that you might carry with you, to set them down and just release and let go, right? To release and let go, to be free, right? To feel that freedom and space inside that something might have been taking up that you didn't need to carry or that wasn't yours to carry, right? That can be a thing that we do too. It's about being willing to let go. It's about being willing to surrender. It's about being willing to listen. And I think that a lot of the time we can get so caught up in the everyday and the busy that we forget to just listen. We forget to do that. And if you look up the hashtag permission slip, people have done amazing things on Instagram in particular with this idea of giving yourself permission to just be. Like, it's okay. It's okay to need time to rest. It's okay to need connection. It's okay to want conversations that have depth to them. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay, right? These little reminders and they're kind of encouragements too. And it's easy to look at that and be like, whoa, that's validation. I don't need that from other people, but we do need people, right? We do need people. So, do we push away the need for connection and community and call it validation when what we're actually needing is something that connects us to other people and lets us know that we're seen, lets other people know that they're seen, that they're heard, right? So are we pushing that away because it's like, oh, I don't want to do that, when really it's like, yeah, we do, but we name it different things, right? We name it different things: being willing, surrender, let go. But when we were kids, I was thinking about this. In 2020, I read a book. It's shocking, I know. I'm going to put it here. It had a bit of a religious bent to it, so take that for what you will. But I found that, so as I was doing inner child work and really meeting this like little me before I started to transition and come out to people in really fulsome and meaningful ways, I read through that book and wanted to make sure that I was meeting the needs of that child, right? Meeting the needs of little me inside. And it was profound because one of the things that I really started to understand with great depth is how we comfort and how we are comforted. I mean, even if you grew up in a home where comfort was a little bit scarce or sparse, you still had grown-ups in your life that at least once when you cried said, it's okay, it's okay, it's all right, come here, and just beheld you, right? Just beheld you. Didn't ask you to be anything, didn't ask you to stop crying, nothing. They just beheld you. And that gave you permission. And I feel like what I have been noticing last week and over the weekend too, just with, feeling a little bit unwell and then kind of bouncing back from it. My voice is still, but it's getting there. But it's like being beheld and beholding and allowing and just allowing without this need for something to look a different way or for people to be different. Like, it's just meeting yourself and saying, it's okay. It's okay. Because that allows us to see things differently. It gives us the space. It gives us the space inside. It clears the space of what was so that something new in terms of a perspective or in terms of a way of doing things or connections can come into that place and meet us there. So it's okay. It seems like such a basic thing. Like, it's just comfort. You're just giving yourself comfort. But sometimes we feel like the hard, it justifies the good when it comes, or it explains the good when it comes. Like, you've suffered enough. And it's like, well, do you need to though? Do you need to think of it in that way? Hard work is a thing, we putting in time and all of that stuff into something, but there's like work smart, not hard. That saying also exists too. So there's all these nuances to that conversation. But what I'm saying here is that, like, when's the last time you just gave yourself permission to feel something, to want something, to care about something, just to care about something, to like a topic, right? Like I love Super Nintendo. When I was younger, I used to play that game all the time, like, and geeking out to the point where I have this little, like I have a player's guide from Donkey Kong Country 3. My dad and my brother and I used to pore over the pages and figure out all the strategy to get through the game. And it was so much fun, right? Give yourself permission to love stuff like that, even if it feels ridiculous and silly, right? Even if it feels silly, because there's some kind of freedom in that. And also not maligning yourself when you realize that other people, by being them, their wisdom, synchronicities that come to you from others, allow these things to connect you to the core of your life, because that too is giving you permission. And we can say it's like validation and icky that we're looking for, but we're gonna need that kind of thing anyway. And if you're validating yourself, yeah, you're gonna have validation, like it's gonna be there. But this is also a core part of connecting to other people, allowing yourself to be seen. It's almost like a skill, right? Like allowing yourself to be seen is allowing yourself to show up and say, yeah, I'm gonna have some needs. And they're not going to be ones that are going to ask you to be different. They're not going to be ones that are going to demand something from you so that I can be full, because I'm full on my own. The needs are more based around connection and building something with someone. The needs are based on reaching out and being beheld, right? It doesn't involve attachments or, and if if people choose not to do it, you have a way of reacting that has nothing to do with them, right? There are healthy ways to go about this. And healthy just meaning that they're not grounded in codependence, right? Because that doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't honor us. And that's what we're, here to unlearn and learn how to do, is to honor ourselves. So it gets to a point though where you start to wonder, like, when's the last time, and even ask yourself this, right? Like last week I was like, man, I really needed to give myself some permission here, right? But give yourself permission. Write a permission slip for yourself. There's a thing. That's an actual thing people have done. I think there's one particular, either an artist or a teacher or something out in the ethers whose work is based around that, and I highly recommend it. Give yourself a permission slip. Write it out for you. I give myself permission to blank. I give myself permission to feel blank, right? And allow that permission to meet you on the path. This is the allowing piece where you release resistance, your shoulders drop. I heard a reader talk about it this way in terms of talking to someone at their job. I think it was Baba Jolie readings, but it was like talking about how that they were talking about to someone at work and whatever at an old job they had, and it's just their shoulders fell. And I just thought that visual perfectly represents giving yourself permission. Allow your shoulders to just fall, right? Allow your shoulders to just, okay, it's okay. And we do this for ourselves, right? And it's not looking to situations outside of you to give you that. Being able to just to see that in the world and respond to it from a place of, okay, I can give that to myself. It's okay. I can give that to myself. You're not looking for it in other people. When it meets you in others, I think of it as a synchronicity where it gives you that ability to surrender whatever it is that you might have been carrying and say, okay, there's something more that I can do with this, and I am willing. And that's what A Course in Miracles talks about too, is being willing to see things differently. So when do you give yourself permission in that? When have you given yourself permission to just be? Sometimes it's okay to be not okay with it, and you just have to give yourself permission to do that. Especially, I found this a lot in community work and things, is where there's so many times that you have to be on, that giving yourself permission to just be not okay needs to be okay more. And especially in positions of leadership where people revere this stoicism and, stuffing things down and then breaking down behind closed doors. Is that the healthiest? I mean, sure, if you're leading a company, you can't, there's certain ways that displaying emotions in specific contexts doesn't serve anybody. But when are you giving yourself permission to feel those things in constructive ways? You could even think about this in terms of blessing. Like someone's like, I give you my blessing to do that. Give yourself the blessing to be you. Give yourself the blessing to just not be okay some days, to be amazing other days. Because that's the thing too. Sometimes we can get into a place where it's almost like we have to tiptoe our inner joy. Like don't let anyone know. Can't let anyone know, right? Don't let them see. So we like tiptoe in our joy because we feel as though our joy is going to tamp down someone else's light, when that's just not the case. Like I'm thinking of that as an example because it's a common one, right? Don't, it's okay. Give yourself the blessing. And this is how I see us, as like blessing one another, is this quiet way that being yourself gives other people permission to do them. A lot of the time I talked about this with folks in terms of coming out. I was 16 when I did, which is a while ago. A while ago. And it's just that the people that gave me permission to be myself were the ones just doing them, just by virtue of who they were. That gave me permission. And you don't even know that you're doing it a lot of the time. That's the cool part. It's just by being you. Just by being you, you're doing so many things, right? Just by, I experienced this with that author, Mia Violet, who wrote, Yes, You Are Trans Enough. Just by being, that book changed my life. That book gave me permission to transition because I saw a story that represented mine, that mirrored my own experience. And in it, I saw a way through. That book gave me permission. There were different readings that I was watching and things like that while I was resting this weekend. And I thought, man, that is such a permission giving, and it's life giving. It's affirming. These are ways that we validate one another from a place of connection and depth, as opposed to codependency, where just by being you are willing to take in information. You are willing to be flexible and adaptable, right? And I think that this could carry over into when we think about being coached and coachable. Like if you're coachable, it means that you're open, right? So staying open. So important. But the core of it too, the other side of this, is not just about giving yourself permission to do things, and to be things, to feel things, to have things, to want people, to want relationships, to like people, like all of that stuff. It's not just about that. It's also about the way that you doing you authentically and giving zero about what other people think. It gives other people permission to do the same. I'm not talking about doing harm. That's never what I'm talking about. So get that right out of there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about doing you authentically and so truly and purely that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what other people say. And that's the shit that's inspiring. That's the thing that moves mountains too. So as much as we think about giving permission on like a little slip and, like, oh, that's so cute and clever. Sometimes for people who have been in relationships or, connections with family or friends where it's been toxic and they haven't had the ability to do that, this seems like a basic thing. But for those of us who have been in those scenarios, especially if abuse was ever a factor, giving yourself permission is validating that you have a right to be here, that your needs are important. That can be a big thing to know. So as much as we might rush to this thing to say that's external validation, for people who are healing from trauma related to any kind of abuse, it's also life-giving. It's life-giving. That's what it was for me. After I left a relationship where physical violence was a factor, giving myself permission to want things. This was way back. This was 2007, 8. But it's like that was giving myself the ability to look out into the world and say that my existence and the shape and texture of who I am in it is important here. And, we live in a world too that moves so fast. It moves so fast. And the news cycle can almost like absorb us. Like I think about it like that movie Flubber. But it's like it absorbs, it just like it absorbs and then expands. And I feel like that's kind of what the news can do sometimes, right? And it can make you feel like you don't, because the only thing that can sometimes get reported on is the losses, is the harm. And then you start to wonder, does my life matter only when it's lost, only when it's harmed, right? And it goes so far beyond that. That's not true at all. But that's where it's the world can sometimes convince you of these things. So give yourself permission. Also disconnect from the news. I'm just putting it out there. Excellent mental health strategy. Excellent healing strategy. Disconnect from the news. It affirms that the specificity and nuance of your heart is important here. So this week, don't forget to give yourself permission, and ongoing too, right? So give yourself permission. Sometimes that's the higher path. Sometimes it's the higher path because it allows you to be seen, to behold yourself, right? And to be flexible enough to just let other people do that, to let other people's presence and wisdom and gifts do that. Because that's spirit carrying you through your day. That's spirit carrying you through whatever you're working through. That's spirit carrying you. So are you allowing yourself to be carried? Are you allowing yourself to be held by a higher power if there's no person or people to engage with in that way, specifically romantically or just in family connections, right? So you can be whole and complete on your own and still need permission sometimes. It's okay. It's absolutely okay. I'm here to tell you. I'm here to give you permission. You have my blessing. You have my blessing. So give yourself that this week. That is your lesson, though, for today. A Course in Creativity, lesson 55, Cosmic Permission Slips. So, my darling creative collective, if this resonated, please give it a like and subscribe. I'd love to have you on the channel if you're not already. But if you're joining me from my subscriber base, thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me, and I really, really, really appreciate you. So thank you, truly. It's humbling. It's humbling to watch this grow. So thank you for that. And as always, though, wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope that it finds you very, very well, my friends. Take care.